Hi, everybody. Welcome to Board Game Animal. My name is Justin, and we have a special guest with us today. Not the Reiner you were expecting. We have the Taylor from Taylor's Trick Taking Table, designer, game developer, content creator. Taylor, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me. Cheers. Yeah, I'll take it as not the best Reiner in any in any regard, but I'm glad to share the
No.
names.
Well, that's no. Thank you so much for joining us. We wanted to take a few minutes today to talk about Sail Legacy. We know there's a lot of exciting things on the pipeline for you, and just take a few moments to dive into it all.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
So, just for the odd chance for anyone who's not familiar with your channel, I just wanted to talk for a minute about the fact that you have a board game channel that is dedicated to a mechanism, really. So,
Yeah.
what's the story behind that? What made you choose to do that and develop it the way you have?
Yeah. It's actually really funny. Anytime I tell people or folks who make videos specifically, they're like, wow, you really pigeonholed yourself to being just about trick taking. And in that it started off as something that I was worried would be very, very specific, and I guess it still is. But I think that this genre is so historied and so across like every country and has a ton of spark in like the indie community right now, especially that
Mhm.
I am at a level of like I'm actually now like overwhelmed with like the amount of games to cover. So it's been really fun, and it's been nice to. I always wonder how like jargon heavy and like I never want to use too many terms or like kind of gatekeep anyone from watching the video. But it's really fun to really dive deep into a very specific topic. You get
Mhm.
into the weeds on something and it gets so much more interesting to me. It's almost like the more you know, the less you know kind of
Right.
vibes. I remember when I was a film minor in college, and I remember trying to come up with a thesis statement and like trying to come up with like this perfect thesis statement. And I had to write a lot about it. So I wanted it to be broad. And my professor was always like, no, just go as specific as possible because that actually gives you the freedom to, um, like ironically, when you hyper focus on something, it actually kind of frees you up and or lets you go places that are actually like where you can really explore and getting very specific sometimes lends like this boost and like the to both like really get every perspective on something or like
Mhm.
actually talk about very specific details, which are really fun. But yeah, so I do trick taking, climbing, shedding videos, a lot of card games mostly, and it's been really fun. So it's been like 4 or 5 years, which is wild to think. I'm actually, how long has have you been at it
Uh,
yourself? I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, we've been doing videos on YouTube now for 2 years. Before that, there we did kind of a brief thing on TikTok, which those videos are all up there still, and they're even more cringy than our actual YouTube videos. Um, but yeah, to your point, a couple things. I mean, yeah, finding your niche can be interesting, and finding things that people aren't doing can be
Hmm.
a pretty dynamic choice. Like in our case, we started doing this because I wanted to do something with board games, and my kids
Yeah.
wanted me to do something with our pets. And I said, why not throw it together? Nobody's doing it. It's
Yeah.
silly, but for some reason, some people like it. But
Yeah, right.
like you said, with kind of that specificity of doing trick taking, right? It's kind of like when I tell someone that I do something with board games, they're like, "Oh wow, there's more than like 10 board games that exist."
Right. Yeah.
Then if you get into that trick taking, like you start talking about that specifically, I consider
Yeah.
myself a huge trick taking fan. And yet I haven't played even like remotely the amount that I know you have based on your channel. And it's like once you open
Yeah.
those floodgates, there is
Hmm.
so much depth there that people don't know.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember there's like is it Pro ZD? But he has like a joke about before he got into like water Reddit and like at the start he's like, oh I love, tap water's great. And then it's like once you get really deep into it, you're like, oh the pH of this
Yeah.
Dasani like you can really focus on the upper minutia of it all. It's been really fun to really dive deep and you find old games that have gone to the wayside and then you have new games because trick taking is dare I say, in right now.
Hmm.
Knock on wood. I'm always nervous it'll go the way of the dodo bird. But um, the idea of I love certain channels that kind of also like look at really old gems that don't get talked about. So it's really fun to kind of bounce back and forth within that genre. So even though it's a very specific channel, there's been fun and creative ways to kind of like break out of that. But it's been a good time so far.
No, it's great, and I love the work you do because the way you go into each game and then give some like deep thoughts on it, and you have fun with the process, and that's something I appreciate
Yeah.
too. I try to put some comedy and stuff into what we
Yeah.
do, but I mean even just the designer diary stuff for Sail Legacy. I know you were dressed up and having some fun there,
Yeah.
and putting some comedy into it, and that's great. I highly recommend that to anybody who hasn't watched it yet.
That's so kind. Yeah, I've noticed like it was actually a really interesting moment when I realized like the Dice Tower had started incorporating a lot more comedy as well. Like I think like Jay at Carparties is just so funny. Like
Hmm.
there's something to um seeing a lot more like levity in board games in
Yeah.
general, which is really fun. And your channel specifically, like I feel like the voiceovers and like just animals, like there's such a um upbeat, fun vibe that I think going back even like 10 years, like sometimes board game reviews were like, this is what it is, this is what I think, and then like it was like done. So it's fun to have like a lot of comedy or like a little silliness in it more, which is fun to see.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more because that's kind of the whole idea behind like the channel here for me is that I want to do something where it conveys the message that we can talk about things and be serious and talk about these things we love, but not take ourselves too seriously. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's like we're all here for fun and games, right? Like literally.
Yeah,
So
literally. Yeah, no,
so
exactly. Yeah, literally games.
So I wanted to, of course, talk about the hot topic, right? Sail Legacy. It is being talked about everywhere. It is trending on Board Game Geek. The actual campaign is live. What is this like for you right now? This is just, I'm sure, an exciting time to watch those numbers go up, watch so many people talk about it, right?
Yeah, it's super surreal. I've dabbled in game design and game development that has ranged from like any side of um like big like kind of name versus like very indie. And this has been the biggest, like especially like there's something to Kickstarter where it's like number go up kind of brain where you're just
Yeah.
like, how many times do I tap the Kickstarter? How many times do I try not to? Do I close the tab? Things like that. There's also like this funny thing where specifically with trick taking and legacy as like Sail Legacy as an idea, um, where reviewers can't quite 100% talk about it um it's just interesting, right? Like you can't it's like showing people the trailer and then having the game or the movie come out like
Right.
much later. I guess that is how movies work. I don't know why I'm this is a bad analogy maybe, but the idea of like watching people, I guess you do see that in some movie reviews. Some people will watch trailer and have like trailer breakdowns, and that's almost
Mhm.
sort of like it feels like. And so it's a little wild to make a game that like people can't 100% play. It's just such a it's really interesting. So I'm a mix of like nervous because no one's fully played the game
Right.
100% yet. Like I've obviously played it a bunch and I played it a bunch, but there's a level of like the final production isn't quite there
Hmm.
because uh as I don't know if you've seen any of the other like Monique and Naveen did a great walkthrough or like some people have shown some components, but the copies that went out to reviewers were just like the first one third of the game or so. So it's just been really interesting in terms of um expectation. It's just like everything's very heightened.
Right.
And yeah, so I'm excited, I'm nervous, I'm anxious. It's it's a lot of emotions. Sometimes like as a playtesting experience as well, like it, if you have like a game that you can reset and replay, like even the Lord of the Rings when we were developing the Fellowship of the Ring trick taking game, like that is a very resettable experience. Like you can
Hmm.
play Chapter 11 the same way with across play groups and stuff. But with the trick taking legacy game, it's just like so like it just anything can happen. So I don't quite it's like I imagine it's like raising kids, and then you're like you get to the point where that they can start leaving the home, and you're just like, I don't know what's gonna like they're
Yeah.
adults now, and yeah, so it feels a bit like that. But it's exciting overall. It's fun and exciting.
I wanted to kind of talk about the dichotomy of the
Mm,
fact that, there's so much that you have internalized, right? That you know about the
mm,
game that people don't know
yeah,
about yet.
yeah,
Um, and,
yeah, yeah.
and we're gonna keep this spoiler free, but even like
Okay.
one of the spoilers in your second design diary, I could probably do this whole interview just talking about that one spoiler because it's so exciting. Um,
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and there's so much that could be unpacked there. So one of the things I wanted to kind of get into the weeds a little bit about was what is it like designing something so different from that normal trick taking experience? Because I feel like a lot of trick taking games, I know the ones you talk about, the ones that we've talked about on our channel, are ones that I can explain the rules to you.
Yeah,
Once you know
right.
the rules, that's it. And you
Yeah.
can continue playing it with a group. And I think this was a point you mentioned that trick taking kind of thrives when you have a group of people who continually play it and you get around, you have that dynamic around the table, you all become more familiar. And this instead is a game that you can't just spill all the rules and spill all the
Yeah.
beans out to people. And then at the same time, it's something that's constantly changing as you're playing. So what was that like
Yeah.
creating a game around a mechanism that's all about familiarity and making a game that's not?
That is that's an amazing question. I struggled with this when I first sat down to do the design because I think, yeah, trick taking is based in this idea of getting into a flow state and like playing a lot and understanding the card makeup and the deck makeup. And I think there's this idea of having a familiarity. And then legacy is like surprises and new and rules changes and wildness thrown at you all the time. And so it was interesting to try to balance that. In fact, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, but the game propels forward.
Mhm.
It's not like Pandemic Legacy where you might replay a month, you'll always like kind of move forward. But a really good playtester feedback was like, hey, sometimes though, like in a trick taking like environment, it is kind of nice to like replay scenarios. So it was really cool to have a little bit of both. Like there's ways to go replay certain things, and then there's ways to always just like push it forward. And I let the players like take that into their hands. Because I do think there are certain groups that are like, we're good. We don't want to like um
Mhm.
kind of have to like retest familiar things. And then there's some players who are like, whoa, this is like a little too fast paced. So I try to balance it a little bit in like the content of the game, but also there's an interesting thing where I wanted there to be surprises, but not like too many gameplay rules changes, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, um, not spoiling much, but you do play different scenarios. And a lot of times what's new and fun and different of within them is more the goal or more the NPC or like kind of the thing that's embodying what you're playing with. And
Mhm.
so the core gameplay loop actually remains the same. And also there's this idea, if you played Sail, where you're playing the game over a course of hands. So there are individual moments of um, not calm, but like familiarity. Like you're like, oh yes, we are playing tricks. Like you have this mini game that always makes sense to you. You're always playing a trick, and you have a hand of cards, and then you'll shuffle and deal and get a new hand of cards. And then what's different and new is actually this kind of like little meta thing around it. Uh, when we were developing the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring trick game, we I don't know why I said the whole thing, but we we played around with that idea of like how much familiarity versus how much new like wacky new character or wacky new event or something. Um, and it's definitely a tough thing to balance because so many different people, so many different types of people play um, games, right? So like one time I was talking to someone who was like, man, Fellowship was so hard. And like, we struggled on X, Y, and Z. And then I talked to someone else who was like, it was so easy and I wish it was harder. And it's always tough to balance those things. Like um, you get just different types of play styles, different types of people. Um, and so I tried to put it in players' hands. Like I think that was a big uh, aspect of the design is when you get something that can go kind of off the rails or in a good way, when
Hmm.
it gets so sprawling, that you kind of want players to define it a little bit more because then they can course correct, and they can do a better job than I can. Who I'm only living through the rules really, like
Right.
and the story. Like I'm not at the table sadly to facilitate that experience. So it helps to have some of that on like the players and have the players making choices that make the game kind of form to them. So like the game is kind of this liquid and the players are kind of like this container, like the
Hmm.
vase or whatever. So try to do that. Try to have like a lot of player defined flows, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. And actually, it kind of leads me to something else I wanted to ask because I think Sale is just a very interesting beast because
Mm,
the original Sale, because we already talked about trick taking is its own niche in card games. Okay,
yeah,
now
yeah.
it's a cooperative one. Okay, now it's two player only cooperative
Right.
one. There's all
Mhm.
these steps. And now you add a new niche of like legacy onto that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an the whole, subgenre thing. It's unique, right? There is nothing else like it in the hobby space.
Right. It is wild. And we tried to like Joe, who's the COO of Allplay, when we were, you know, riffing and brainstorming a little bit at the start, we're like, what can this do different that is special? I think I tried to design from that space where, and I think it helps a lot when you come up with an idea or you have like the premise, and not that you're stuck, like you're in that brainstorming phase, but you're like, what does this do different? And how can you like really lean into that?
Hmm.
So like with other games that I've done in the past, like developing Mori, where it's like trick taking and dice. It's like, okay, well, what type of dice do we want to do? Like, do we want those to have ranks on them? And then like Nicosia Dice does that brilliantly. So we're like, oh, let's have them be suits. So it's kind of like you kind of want to lean into what's new and what's different and wild. And so we tried to play off the idea of like, oh, it's legacy, so you can remove things as you go. So it's like, okay, what could you remove? So we're like looking at how the deck could change and things like that.
Yeah.
So, uh, and one of the interesting elements is how you plan for when players lean too heavily into an element, like if they cultivate their deck into a spot that might be bad for them. Like you try to be like, oh, okay, where are we gonna go from here?
Hmm.
So uh yeah, but it's been really fun to like start from such a unique spot and then like see where that goes.
Right.
But yeah, like that mix is just such an interesting design space to work in.
Yeah. Now, speaking of where it started to where you are now, I kind of had a twofold question here for you because it correct me if I'm wrong, but was something that you had said was that you had gotten the call that, hey, what do you think of the idea of Sail Legacy, just in
Mhm.
general, right? And then the
Yeah.
second question was, would you like to design it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
can only imagine that's a 1-2 punch, right? Because
Yeah.
I know you developed Sail and
Mhm.
you have games you've designed, you have games you've developed, but at the end of the day you are a fan. So I
Yeah.
imagine you had a reaction like a lot of us where it's like, oh, Sail Legacy, that sounds great, that sounds exciting. So that's punch one, right? And then punch two, would you like to design it? What was that moment like there?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Oh my gosh. Well, like you were saying, uh, the uh, fan part of it was huge. Like I played what its sale was based on, Hameln Cave, a ton, and it was one of those games that stood out because I love that kind of symbol interaction, and I was yeah definitely um, so into trying to beat it because it was just so hard. And um, so in fact, when they asked me to develop Sail, I was over the moon. I was like, whoa, this is so awesome. And so what's fascinating was during that call, yeah, Joe was like, hey, what do you think about Sail Legacy? And immediately, yeah, you start thinking what it could be, um, like how big it is, even in like all these ideas. And then because I again assumed like someone else was gonna was gonna make it. I thought they already um were I thought it could be like maybe development or something. Like it's like, oh, we have Cell Legacy. Do you want to play it and like give ideas um and so I immediately was just so excited because Legacy, there's there's a game called Trick Legacy, which the premise is you buy a deck of standard playing cards and like that you can like rip up and change, and then you play through like kind of like a legacy-ish game, and then if you want to recharge back, you just buy another standard deck of cards. So it was a really cool idea, but it didn't quite have like a story, which is not necessarily true of every legacy game, but like it definitely comes with the genre, and it didn't have like too long of a gameplay. Like it was definitely a bit isolated. So I think that idea of like legacy and trick taking was always kind of in the back of my mind. So when Joe said that, I was like, that sounds amazing. And I was, yeah, like fan first, very like excited. And then when he said design it, I I think I was quiet for a really long time because I didn't know um I didn't know what to say. Like I was genuinely speechless. I think it was because it's a I just step back a little bit. Like I remember when Star Wars became like less of like this monolithic film series, and it started having a lot more like adaptations and like well, definitely there's always like books and video games and stuff. But then when there was starting to be like Rogue One or like Star Wars TV shows and stuff,
Right.
and they started giving like a lot of interesting directors and creators like more access to shows like Andor and stuff
Hmm.
just giving creators interesting voices in the field. And I think I was it almost felt like it almost felt like that where it was like, oh wow, I get to I get to take over the reins of whatever this uh the legacy idea could be. And it felt very much like that where it was just like, oh my gosh, getting access to this playground.
Right.
Um uh yeah, it was overwhelming, exciting, thousands of ideas, and but yeah, mostly speechless at the start though. That was kind of the second punch that really got me.
Well, no, I think that that's a great testament to your abilities, as as a designer and a developer, because it is one thing, right? And that's in and of itself, it's empowering, exciting to be given that trust to be like, well, would you like to design a game? But then designing a
Yeah,
game in a pre-existing world, essentially,
yeah,
that's a big compliment, and I think that speaks a lot to your quality as a designer and developer.
that's yeah, that's cheers. Yeah, it was very surreal. Yeah, I think that's the right word. Yeah.
Right. Is one thing I always like to ask designers is what changed the most from the original idea to the final
Oh yeah,
product? And I know that that's probably a difficult question to answer. So I wanted to tweak this, and I thought this would be a funny way to put it. Is
yeah,
where you're avoiding spoilers, right? So
yeah.
can you give me an anti-spoiler and tell me something that's
Oh,
not in the game that you may have considered or thought of, and you were like, it didn't fit.
this is such a funny question. Um, because I don't know if I can say this because it might be a thing later.
Got it.
But let me pick one that I'm pretty sure will definitely not be it. So I, how do I say this? This is a great question. This is a great question. I'm trying to pick the right one. I was going to have, oh man, this is so funny because uh
I should have warned you about this. I'm sorry.
no, this is perfect. This is perfect. No, this is perfect. This is perfect. I wanted there to be so many. Okay, here's a good one. I this is maybe a slight spoiler. But in the game, you can do things, and that puts you you can do things and kind of follow different storylines. There's like branching story paths,
Right.
and you can do certain things to have branching story paths. I love the Telltale games like
Hmm.
Wolf Among Us and The Walking Dead, and I think they did such a good job of like pushing narrative and making you super invested. But I think some of people's complaints for some of The Walking Dead or like some of the Telltale games was like sometimes the choices didn't matter. Um, and so there's this branching story paths in Stale Legacy, and I wanted there to be like 25 different endings. And um, that is definitely something that is not in there.
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
Joe was like, "What?" Uh, I had endings where it's like if you make this one small choice, um, like 0.1% of people would see it, you know?
Hmm.
How I've changed that is like you can make small choices that have ramifications later. It won't be like a full mission that you would do or full like scenario that you would do like by yourself.
Right.
Um, because one of the great things was they were like, hey, like go wild, do whatever you want. And but I would come up with like all these ideas, but then there is some level of like, hey, this game's going to be like a bajillion dollars, and like the art assets are going to be like so numerous, it would be like years before we come out. Like I was
Weberson's
having
gonna get
like,
tired, right?
yeah, exactly. I was having so many Wells ideas that it would take, yeah, take a long time to make, but then also like um, it was a really interesting learning experience from Fellowship. I always bring this up just because it's, campaign trick taking, where like a lot of the time, most people, you never know how far they're going to get. Like, will everyone play the last scenario of
Right.
Fellowship? Like, will they ever get there? Like, sadly, um, board games don't have like video game data where you can like see how far someone goes or which level they die on a lot, or like in BGA, there's all those stats. So it'd be really cool if like Fellowship was in BGA and you could see where like a person gets to, or like their furthest, or like some stats on that. But the idea though is generally like how often will people finish it? That's a classic thing with legacy games or campaign games. Like sometimes
Hmm.
people don't finish it. Um, so an anti-spoiler is it used to have like 25 or 30 very specific end game missions depending on what you picked. And that is just not feasible. So um, there are still different ones, but it got honed in, it got reined in, which was great. But yeah, it used to be like an insane branching path, and I had like this Excel sheet that was like I looked like that classic like Charlie from It's Always Sunny, where it's like all the
Yep.
papers in the back and like the string. It's exactly what I pretty much had. Now it got worked around a little bit. There's like this thing called epilogues in the campaign where um, like a few of those are essentially like what you do. Um, the epilogues are like this replayable kind of this like where you would go after the story in a way. And the story itself has just like definitely branching paths at the very end, but like less for sure. So it got mixed around. It's like some of them are epilogues, some of them are like end game, but it's definitely nowhere near like 25 or 30, which is what it was. But yeah, there's a much better answer to your question, but I don't know if I can say it yet. But yeah.
Well, we'll have to reconvene maybe and
Yes.
maybe can we put on that on the calendar? We'll do an anti-spoiler video
Yeah.
in the future and talk
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
but yeah, no, I can only imagine that scope of freedom, right? You have like,
Yeah.
it says like go wild, and then it's like, oh well, how wild? So
Yeah. Oh, totally.
that is just so exciting, and everything I hear, every tidbit I see, I've tried to, I've tried to avoid spoilers, but I watched your other videos and everything because it's too
Yeah.
tempting, and it looks fantastic. And actually to actually wrap up, this is a challenging question I want to throw at you here,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because I think for folks who like Sail, this is a
Hmm.
no-brainer. Everybody, that's why it's doing well. That's why people are talking about it. Then the people who maybe didn't give it a try, it's like, oh, this can be something that would onboard someone who hasn't played it. There's a lot of
Yeah.
new things. What would you say to someone who has played Sail and didn't like it? Do
That
you
is a
have
great
any?
question.
Because from what I've seen, I know that there's a lot of elements that are different
Yeah.
and may appeal to a different kind of player. So yeah, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to see what your thoughts on were there. If somebody said I played Sail, wasn't for me, what would how would you pitch Legacy to them?
I yeah, no, I think that's an amazing question because I think it's a great amount of like there's a difficulty there and there's also like that was a big goal where like I would watch a lot of sale reviews and be like, what did people not like about this, right? Um, Not a lot of people get another chance at bat, and you don't want to waste that shot. So I really researched this, and I think some of it was people just don't like trick taking games. And that's, it is a trick taking game, so that's a tough one to overcome. But I had a couple moments that I think would win over some folks that didn't like original sale. Again, if you just hated original sale, this is sale. It's like
Right,
if you hate pandemic, then Pandemic Legacy is going to be a tough a tough sell. But
right.
just like Pandemic Legacy, you can just go left, right, harder. So I think sometimes sale got repetitive for folks, maybe simplistic. Uh, and maybe there wasn't enough story there, or there wasn't like something to grab people.
Hmm.
So those are big elements to look at for Sail Legacy. So the narrative that pulls you along, your like choices push the story certain ways, and then there's a huge variety of like goals. So that kind of changes things up. Also, I watched Foster the Meeple. They had a video, and one of one of their takes, because one of the people in there doesn't like cooperative games that much. And and I added like personal goals to the game.
Hmm.
I guess it's a small spoiler, but I feel like it has like a nice, like you're achieving something personally, but you're still working as a team.
Right.
Um, I have a playtester who also doesn't like love cooperative games, so trying to ask them what elements in a cooperative game could help that sense of like, hey, I like competitive games more. Um, it's definitely still a cooperative game. But yeah, so I tried to focus on certain reviewers and like reading a lot of Board Game Geek reviews and like just trying to take in the criticism of what people had issues with sale and trying to address that in what a legacy game can afford. So like a story and like it's definitely bigger.
Hmm.
um like in a bigger kind of box and bigger experience. So I hope it worked. It's also uh like I guess longer in a way. I know some folks like meteor games, so maybe that would help people who want like a kind of a bigger experience. Is it's that's there as well. So I hopefully sometimes or catch some of those kind of maybe people who bounce off sale. Maybe we'll hope.
Right.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I hope so, and I hope they give it a try because I think too a couple of your points there, even just the fact that there's more depth to it. This isn't me by any means, but I do know friends of mine and folks in my game group and stuff that with trick taking, it's like I played it, I get it, that's it.
Yeah.
Like it's just like they don't see any draw to come back. But the fact that
Mhm.
this is it I think a lot of legacy games are like this, but just from what I've seen with Sail Legacy, it does kind of have that video game element, right? Like it's like there's
Yeah.
levels and there's that exploration and what am I going to discover next?
Yeah.
So I think if folks are a fan of that, it could be a big pull for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's like a sense of yeah, leveling up and like progress, I guess. Because like in
Mm.
Sail, it was hard, right? So you could just like lose a bunch on level 3 and be like, okay, I'm not gonna beat this, I guess. Or,
Yeah,
Uh, whereas this one's like, oh, okay, you might get a fun tool, and you're like, how do you use that tool? And like maybe that'll help you in the next one. So I think there's a sense of forward movement as opposed to like
right.
sail is very like sometimes you'll spin your wheels, spin your tires, or I guess your rudders or whatever's on a boat that spins.
Spinning
But
something,
yeah,
right?
you're spinning something spinning. But yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and talk about it. I wish you all the success with Sail Legacy. Can't wait to reconvene down the line.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and thank you for being a friend of the channel here.
Oh, thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. I am so thankful for having me on, and those questions were genuinely very insightful, and I could talk about hours on all of them, but they were so great. So thanks so much. This was wonderful.
Oh, my pleasure.
Oh yeah, and don't forget to play board games like an animal.